I mean, it's also really important to
Which email? User phone contact. Set URL, like kind of custom stuff. That you might be better off.
Quick lightning talks right now, so please hold your questions, comments till the end of both talks so everyone can cover what they're going to do. Up first, we have Christie Chirinos, and she is going to talk about contact forms of great victory. She's going to tell you a little more about herself, what she's talking about, and I'll be back in about 15 minutes. All right, Christine.
Very victorious contact forms. Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Hello. My name is Christie Chirinos, as Chris said. I'm one of the owners of Caldera WP. Among other things, you may know us for Caldera Forms. It's a drag and drop form builder for WordPress. And if you are on Twitter, I am also on Twitter. You can look, you can tweet at me about this talk or anything else at cicichirinos. What's happening? We have 15 minutes, and I want to make sure that we get through all of this. So if I'm going a little bit fast, I'm sorry. But you will be able to find all of this information on Twitter later on, which is why I'm pointing this out to you. We have 15 minutes, and my computer's not cooperating. A little bit before Caldera Forms, I have been doing a lot of work when it comes to web design and development. And a lot of that had to do with e-commerce, some of that had to do with lead generation. The thing that all of those kinds of websites have in common is that they rely on forms. We need people to put in their information. We're not just serving content, we're doing a little bit more. We're receiving that feedback. And if that form isn't well thought out, we're in trouble. Because the entire point of your investment is to get that piece of feedback, whether it's that customer contact information for a follow-up, whether it's that purchase, whatnot. And making sure that each individual site works has always been very important for me, ever since the day that we were doing like simple HTML sites that had like a sad form that could get you hacked to the end and back, to now when we have things like form plugins and self-hosted form solutions to collect customer information. So when we have 15 minutes, I wanted to give you key pieces of things to think about that maybe you don't normally think about because it's not right in front of you, to make sure that those forms are solid and that you're putting forth your best foot to make sure that your website does the job that it needs and your investment works the way it's supposed to. So we'll be talking about platform accessibility, form design, A/B testing, and tracking results. So the first question is this question of choosing a platform. I have a WordPress website that I want to do something with. I want to collect a subscription payment. I want to advertise myself as a coach or a consultant, and I want people to look at the things I write and then contact me. And I need to figure out how to do that. You have a lot of options. You have a good number of options for that. I think an easy thing that I've seen, and I personally love it and do not tell you to stray away from it if you have 5 minutes to make this happen, is use an embedded form from whatever it might be, whether that is MailChimp, you're trying to get people to sign up for an email list and you can contact them later, and you get that form that you get with the platform. Quick and dirty, quick and pretty, there's a lot of branded and hosted solutions. You've probably heard of SurveyMonkey, you've heard of Google Forms, you've heard of Typeform. These are a lot of really great options to send out a thing to somebody online and get a response back for whatever your purposes may be. A lot of you are in here because you build websites professionally. That is where form plugins come in. I work, my plugin is Caldera Forms, but you can also use things like Ninja Forms and Gravity Forms. These are amazing solutions that take you to the next step, because we don't have to take the person off the page. We can have yourwebsite.com/contact, and we can deeply customize what kinds of information we ask for as we progress forward, and we don't have to create that dissonance that comes from moving people around. I can play on hard. There's a lot of people that ask us about making your own. Don't do that. we have this blog post on the website on the Caldera Forms website about why we don't recommend doing this. I fully acknowledge that we are a little bit biased. We want you to use our plugin. But the reason that people use our plugin is because it's a really bad idea. If you want to look at why you should not do this, you can take a look at that link and read more about this, but it comes down to using an existing solution takes away the responsibility off your shoulders for the complexity of form development. Making forms is hard. There are security concerns, there are concerns about making sure that things go where they need to go at the time they go, and if you make your own solution, you are putting all of that weight upon yourself. And as covered, for many websites that many of us work on, that form is possibly the most important part. So I highly recommend giving that responsibility to somebody else, that you can point your finger and say, you, Caldera Forms people, you need to fix this immediately, as opposed to having to be like, I have to do this. The next concept is accessibility. You might work on that form using a plugin, and it looks really nice to you because you are able to use a computer without an accessible device, but something like 20% of the internet users are using some sort of assistive device, whether that means they're using a screen reader, they're using a text enlarger, so on and so forth. If you are excluding 20% of the potential people that could be your customers, you're not doing good business, and you're not doing right by your client. So something that I highly encourage you to think about after what does my form look like is my form accessible to those with disabilities? Is it accessible to people that only have mobile devices or that are on slower connections on their mobile devices? Is it translatable? If I am targeting some US populations that speak Spanish and English equally, I want to make sure that when the browser tries to translate using that bar that's like, would you like to transfer this website to your language? That when you click yes, that the form will actually translate. And these are things that you want to test for and think about as you create a form. Ways that you can do that, some more things to think about. Ways that you can do that is by using a couple of tools that are available online. Now, I'm no accessibility expert. What I hope that you will take from this is that it's not a small percentage of people that you need to think about when you're thinking about accessibility. It is 20% of your potential customers. That's a lot of people, and that is a lot of people that you are not serving, right? If your job was to make a website and 20% of the people who use that website can't access it, you did not do your job. And that's something to think about when creating forms. If you want to look at cross-device testing, so looking at different size screens, looking at different internet connections, there are also tools that you can use to test for these things and maybe think about what your form looks like in setups that are different to yours. As well as translating your forms, there are a couple of tools that you can use to both test whether your form can be translated and to actually translate your form to different languages. So that means actually providing a toggle for your users that says, I would like to see this form in a different language. It's a really great strategy for those of us that do nonprofit work, who maybe need to serve different kinds of demographics and who actually want to provide a specific toggle for different languages. You already saw that slide. I have slides missing. Let's talk about form design. When we do Caldera Forms support, we see a lot of forms that don't work the way they're supposed to. And we say, well, send us a link to your form. And we see a 7-page, 150-field form. Don't do this. 2 or 5 fields maximum, 1 text area, 1 select. No one wants to fill out your form, and also it has a much higher chance of not working the way you want it to work if it's an hour-long affair. The question that we always ask is, how much information do you need now? It's possible that you do need 7 pages of information, but do you need it all right now in this sitting? Probably not. You probably can get away with getting that information from your users and then asking them later, doing a follow-up, sending them a different form once you capture their first information. An example that I like to tell everybody is if you are somebody who makes e-commerce websites as a freelancer, you've probably signed up for Stripe once in your life. The way that you sign up for Stripe is you give them your email address and your name. And then after you've used the rest of it, then you're asked for the business name and all the information that's required to be legally compliant. That's great practice, and I highly recommend that you employ it and that you use it for your clients. A lot of people ask us about A/B testing because we've heard somewhere along the line that it's a good idea to test 2 different versions of a form, 2 different ideas, and see which one performs the best. This is a great practice. It can be a little bit resource intensive, but again, if we're talking about the form as one of the most important and crucial parts of your project, it's often worthwhile to put in that level of investment. There are tools that you can use for your A/B testing. We have them listed over here. These are all really great tools. They come at different prices. I would definitely recommend that you check them and see what is available within your project budget. When it comes to testing things on forms, I have seen amazing examples of putting forms, especially lead generation forms, at the top of the page versus at the bottom of the page after an information page, seeing what we have on the submit button. I've seen little examples where a funny submit button does way better than a serious submit button, depending on the audience, right? Like, you ever seen like those pop-ups that make you feel that? It's like, would you like to sign up for a newsletter? Like, yes, no, I hate new information, right? Depending on the audience, that does really, really well or really, really bad. And A/B testing that is the only way to find out. And other ideas to make sure that that form is really pulling its weight and doing as much work as it possibly can. Finally, tracking your results with that form, we have conversion events. If that form's job is to pull the weight of your site to take it to the next place, then we want to make sure that it's actually doing its job. And so that comes down to how many people have seen the form, how many people have filled it out and then walked away to make a copy because it was too long. How many people have actually gone through and submitted the form and made the purchase, sent the email, whatever it is, and how many people, what percentage of that large funnel actually comes through and does whatever you want them to do after initial form submission. So whether that is fill out your second form, make an upsell purchase, whatever it might be. It's a great idea to track these things for 2 reasons. One of them is good practice. The other one, it helps you show your value to your client. So you can start to talk about the money that they pay you in terms of how much money you are generating for them. You can say, look, now that you have this form, a certain percentage of people are coming through and looking at it, and a certain percentage of people are submitting it, and a certain percentage of people are giving you even more money after the fact. These are some tools that you can use for such things. Google Analytics is awesome, everybody uses it. Conversion pixels, you can send these to CRM and you can make sure that you're beginning to paint a picture of the value of your contact form. I think we are right about time.
Yep.
Any questions?
All right, give it up for Christie. In fact, you can you hang out for 15 more minutes and do questions?
Sure.
Okay. So I think we're gonna have our next quick speaker up, and then we'll do questions for everybody afterwards. That's cool? Awesome. All right, thanks again, Christie.